What's up everybody, my name is Phosphorus and today we're going to be taking a look at Spellslinger, which is Arcane's new hero talent tree coming in the War Within. So this just came fresh off of Wowhead a couple minutes ago, so let's take a look together and see what we've got coming in store for us. So first things first, developer note. Spellslinger Splinters are themed and tuned based on your active specialization. Arcane Splinters are named Arcane Splinters that deal moderate arcane school damage. Frost Splinters are named Frost Splinters and deal light frost school damage. Those specifics have been omitted from this mockup for the sake of tooltip readability, as both spec splinters serve the same purpose. Okay, so it seems like we're going to have a new passive for Arcane that's just called Splinter. So let's read more about it. Splintering Sorcery. When you consume Nether Precision, conjure a splinter that fires at your target. Conjure raw magic into a sharp projectile that deals damage. Splinters embed themselves into their target, dealing additional damage over 16 seconds, and this effect stacks. Okay, so basically, anytime you consume Nether Precision, which we're doing all the time because that's our core part of the rotation, we're doing Missile Weaving, we're casting a Clearcast Arcane Missile, 2 Arcane Blasts that are Nether Precision buffed, and then repeating. Anytime we consume that Nether Precision, we're shooting out a Splinter, it deals direct damage, and then becomes a damage over time for 16 seconds, and that can stack. Okay. Controlled Instincts. While a target is under the effects of Nether Tempest, 20% of the direct damage dealt by a Splinter is also dealt to nearby enemies, damage reduced beyond 5 targets. Direct damage from Arcane Splinters resets the duration of Nether Tempest. Okay, so that's actually kind of interesting, right? So it's like you apply Nether Tempest to your target, and then anytime you shoot a Splinter at it, it's going to explode for nearby enemies, and then also reset the duration of Nether Tempest. So in single target, you would Nether Tempest the target, just basically doing your normal rotation where you're just missile weaving with Nether Precision. You're going to be resetting the duration of Nether Tempest. So you can probably keep Nether Tempest up on your target the entire fight if you have good uptime. And then whenever you're in AoE, you're just doing free damage up to 5 targets. And even in single target, you're actually going to be doing free damage from the Splinters. So that's pretty cool. I mean, it just reinforces you doing the rotation correctly and missile weaving as much as possible. So, that's cool. Just get rewarded for doing what you already do. Next up, Augury Abounds. Casting Arcane Surge conjures 8 Splinters, and during Arcane Surge, whenever you conjure a Splinter, you have a 100% chance to conjure an additional Splinter. Okay, so that's interesting. We'll have to keep that in mind, but basically, during Arcane Surge, we have double Splinter generation. Next up, Splintering Orbs. The first 8 times an enemy is damaged by your Arcane Orb, conjure a Splinter that fires at the damaged target. Arcane Orb damage is increased by 10%. Okay, so that's interesting, right? Let's say in AoE situation, right, we're fighting a pack of like 5 mobs. You shoot out an Arcane Orb, and now you just put a Splinter on each of those 5 targets. And if you're in Arcane Surge during that, you put 2 Splinters on each of the targets. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Next up, Reactive Barrier. Your Prismatic Barrier can absorb up to 50% more damage based on your missing health. Max effectiveness when under 50% health. Okay, so that's pretty cool. That seems really strong. Phantasmal Image. Your Mirror Image summons 1 extra clone, and Mirror Image now reduces all damage taken by an additional 5%. Okay, I think Reactive Barrier is just the way to go 100% of the time. Like, first of all, Prismatic Barrier is already really strong. It gives you a huge shield that also gives you a magic resist. And we already have a bunch of talents that buff Prismatic Barrier, right? We have the one talent where whenever you get hurt during your Prismatic Barrier, you regain health based on the shield, right? And then we also have the one where the longer your shield is up, the lower the cooldown gets. Then we also have Shifting Power that reduces the cooldown of Prismatic Barrier. And we also have Mass Barrier, which I'm not sure if this will interact with Mass Barrier, but if it does, I mean, imagine now you just gave 4 other people a 50% stronger shield, right? So yeah, I think out of these 2, Reactive Barrier is just a choice we pick 100% of the time. I would rather them buff Phantasmal Image rather than nerf Reactive Barrier, because I think Reactive Barrier is pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, this isn't even a choice. Like, you just pick your active area every single time. Slippery Slinging, you have 40% increased movement speed during altered time. Look again, displacement has a 50% longer duration, 25% longer range, and leaves behind a mirror image. Okay, I think this is kind of just a playstyle choice. Either one you pick is not really impactful. I mean, okay, you get some increased movement speed during alter time, that's really cool, but then like also Look Again will give you a mirror image, which actually does synergize with Phantasmal Image. You get an additional 5% DR, but yeah, I mean, then you have to take displacement, which, you know, it's on the GCD, you know, it's not that great, but you know, it's whatever. You just pick whichever one of these you feel you like. Volatile Magic. Whenever a splinter is removed or recalled, it explodes, dealing damage to nearby enemies, and it's reduced beyond 5 targets. Okay. Unerring Proficiency. Each time you conjure a splinter, increase the damage of your next supernova by 18%, stacks up to 30 times. Alright, let me do some quick math here. 18 times 30, 540%. So that is cool, right? Like, think about it like this, right? You just casted Evocation, you have the Siphon Storm buff, you cast Arcane Surge, you know, Radiant Spark, Touch of the Magi. On the 4th stack of Radiant Spark with all of your cooldowns put together, you supernova for 540% increased damage. Like, that seems like, one, it would do a ton of damage, and two, it's going to also knock up all the targets, you know, in an AoE situation. So I really hope this numerically works out, because that seems like not only are you getting a new button to press, because, you know, now you take supernova, but you also are doing a ton of damage and doing a ton of CC. So it's just like, it's a button that feels good to press, you know, and hopefully it's good enough to actually press compared to Volatile Magic, because like Volatile Magic is the one where you don't have to think about it. You just, you know, passively get free damage whenever you remove a recall, a Splinter, which we still have to read how often we do that, but in any case, it really just, it goes like, okay, is the passive effect that you don't have to worry about better than the one that you have to actually time and press and stack up? You know, which one of those two is going to be stronger? And it all just comes down to tuning. I really hope Unerring Proficiency wins out in tuning, because it seems like a fun button to press. Next up, Spellfrost Teachings. Direct damage from a Splinter has a 5% chance to summon an Arcane Echo that deals damage to all nearby enemies and increases the damage they take from you by 6% for 6 seconds. Okay, so this is just a passive, really. Like, you know, we just have a chance to do an Arcane Echo anytime we launch a Splinter, and then we increase our damage by 6%. So we don't really think about this ever. It's just a passive effect that's just going to happen, you know, without us actually even tracking it. But the chance of it happening during our cooldowns is actually kind of high, because during Arcane Surge we have double Splinter generation, so the chances of this actually proccing during our cooldowns is pretty up there. So that's at least that's pretty good. Shifting Shards. Shifting Power fires a barrage of 8 Splinters at random enemies within 40 yards over its duration. Alright, I mean, that's cool. You know, we just get some added power onto Shifting Power, but this will only ever be 8 Splinters, because we're never going to cast Shifting Power during Arcane Surge, so we wouldn't get the double Splinter generation. But in any case, it's still free Splinters. Force of Will. Gain 2% increased critical strike chance and 5% increased critical strike damage. Alright, it's decent. Splinter Storm. Whenever you have 8 or more active embedded Splinters, you automatically cast a Splinter Storm at your target. And Splinter Storm, recall all embedded Splinters to you, dealing their remaining periodic damage instantly. After a brief delay, unleash a devastating barrage of Splinters, dealing damage to your target for each Splinter in the Splinter Storm. And then it also gives us a free clear casting. Okay, so that is interesting, but my main question is this counting all active Splinter Storm or Splinters across all targets, or is it only counting 8 or more Splinters on your main target? Because if it's all splinters across all targets, then we're actually going to be proccing Splinter Storm all the time. Because think about it, right? You shoot out, let's say you're fighting a pack of 8 mobs, right? You shoot out an Arcane Orb, you now added 1 Splinter to each of those 8 mobs, and if that procs Splinter Storm, now you're doing a bunch of funnel damage onto your main target. And that's only with 1 Arcane Orb, right? Now if you, like, you have 2 charges of Arcane Orb, you have our Orb Barrage, anytime you barrage, you have a chance to shoot out another Arcane Orb, and then you also have Arcane Surge, which conjures 8 Splinters, so that would proc another Splinter Storm. And also during Arcane Surge, you have a 100% chance of double Splinter generation, so the Arcane Orbs that you shoot during Arcane Surge would actually be 16 Splinters on that 8 target pack, right? So you would actually proc double Splinter Storm every time you Arcane Orb in an 8 target pack. That is actually really strong. I mean, that sounds really strong. We'll have to see how it comes out numerically, but I hope that that's how it works. I hope that Splinter Storm procs off of the total number of Splinters out at any given time. Because then in a huge Mythic Plus pull, you're just like, inside Arcane Surge, an Arcane Orb, 2 Splinter Storms, another Arcane Orb, 2 Splinter Storms, Barrage, and you just get a bunch of Orb procs, each one of them giving you 2 Splinter Storms. And you're just going to be doing a ton of damage inside of a Touch of the Magi, inside of, like, just, in general, you're just going to be absolutely going nuts. And especially if Splinter Storm has a cool animation, which I hope it does, you're just going to be feeling so powerful inside of your cooldowns, even more so than you are now. So yeah, I hope that's how it works. If it ends up only working where, you just proc Splinter Storm off of how many Splinters your main target has, then that'd be a little bit more lame. So yeah, I hope it works off of the total number of Splinters that are out in general. But yeah, so that's actually a pretty cool capstone. And honestly, I think in general, this whole tree is a W. But now, there's one conflict that I think that we might end up having, and that's with Radiant Spark, right? So Radiant Spark is always the kind of spell that causes problems in Arcane's rotation, because we play around it so much, and like there's so many things that might mess it up. And one of them now is a Splinter, right? So Splinters, it seems like they do direct damage, right? 20% of the direct damage dealt by a Splinter is also dealt to nearby enemies, right? So we can assume that Splinters will deal direct damage. Does that mean that direct damage will cause Radiant Spark stacks to go up? Because if so, then we do not want to ever consume Nether Precision during our Radiant Spark ramp, so that we don't fire a Splinter at our target. So that's definitely something that we have to keep in mind now. Always finish your Nether Precision stacks before doing your Radiant Spark ramp. Or maybe we just don't even take Radiant Spark anymore. Like maybe Spellslinger just doesn't take Radiant Spark. Maybe we just leave Radiant Spark for a Sun Fury kind of build. We don't know yet because we haven't seen Sun Fury, but I don't think it'd be too hard just to not like use Radiant Spark while you have Nether Precision. Just finish using your Nether Precision stacks and then do a Radiant Spark ramp, and everything would be fine. So that's probably how it would work. Or maybe Splinters just don't contribute towards ramping up Radiant Spark, and in that case you would just play like you normally do now. And if you have Nether Precision up when you're doing a Radiant Spark ramp, even better, because you get free extra damage, right? So yeah, that's definitely interesting. Radiant Spark doesn't seem to be that big of a problem, but we'll see how the rotation changes, and maybe it does. Maybe it does end up being a problem. But in any case, I think this is a really strong talent tree. Huge W here from Blizzard, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. Okay, so biggest takeaway for me is Splinter Storm sounds insanely strong, especially in AoE, especially if it works the way that I think it does, where it counts the total amount of Splinters across all targets. And then Unerring Proficiency, I really hope this ends up being tuned well, such that you pick this over Volatile Magic. I would rather have us picking the talent that's actually active. You got to think about it, you got to time it, you got to stack it, versus the one that just happens passively whenever you cause a Splinter Storm and you recall your Splinters, you just deal free damage. So I think an Unerring Proficiency would be fun, especially Mythic Plus. Just in general, it'd be like the strong dopamine button to press in the rotation. But yeah, Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. If you think this was a really good talent tree, if you think it could be better, what do you think would like changed? You know, that's pretty much about it. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all the support. Please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.